Well, a warm welcome to this talk. Now, we did a brief video yesterday on the UK government agency that's going to be conducting geoengineering experiments, sun dimming experiments, we believe in the next few weeks. And this is quite a concern to me, and it's quite a concern to a lot of you. Now, just before we go on to some of your opinion on this, I must declare a small interest myself. Personally, I like to breathe oxygen. I find it helps my physiology. And I also like to eat food when I'm hungry. And of course, both of those, food and oxygen, comes from photosynthesis, which of course comes from the sunlight. And apart from that, we don't get that much sunlight in the United Kingdom anyway. So I would always like a bit more. And the idea of people reducing that is not really what we would like. Now, I must apologise for the gratuitous use of a hat in yesterday's video. I know this was quite unpleasant to a lot of you. I did mean to take it off, so it was purely a mistake. So apologies for the hat in yesterday's video. Now, let's look at this. Now, this was yesterday's talk here, just fairly brief talk yesterday. And we did it outside, I guess, to illustrate the importance of the environment. It's had quite a few views, but nearly 7,000 comments. In fact, by now, it probably has got about 7,000 comments. And all of the comments, when I say all, yeah, I think pretty well all of the comments found these proposed experiments really quite concerning and frightening. And there was a pretty well universal desire that they should be stopped. We don't want to be experimented on. I don't want to be experimented on. I haven't given my consent for my environment to be experimented on. And the lead comment here, as you'll see, comes from P. This is about solar radiation management or sun dimming. P helpfully pointed out it's called daylight robbery. But do spend some time reading the other comments there. A lot of really good points came out in the comments, and I really do appreciate people putting things in the comments. If people wanted to, if you're a young researcher out there, you could do a qualitative study on those comments. So let's look at some points in a little more detail now. So experiments to dim the sun will be approved within weeks in the United Kingdom. We believe this is from the Daily Telegraph. Links as always. Experiments to dim the sun to be given the green light by the UK government. That was in the Manchester Evening News, and there's some links there. Now, problems with this. First is I don't consent. We've been experimented on before. And I didn't consent. I didn't give informed consent then, and I don't give informed consent now. Firstly, I don't think we're fully informed, and we don't give consent. Now, the agency involved here, which we will be talking about because there's some interesting quirks on the funding of this. They say they consult the public. Well, maybe we could guide them to the comments from yesterday's YouTube video, and that they might get some idea of what's going on about. So anyway, first is informed consent. The British public, I believe, don't want this. So as far as I can tell, we haven't given consent. I'm worried about national, local and food supply. Now, I get the impression, might be a bit paranoid, but I get the impression certain elites would like to control global food supply. And of course, if you control global food supply, you control the production of food, you control the distribution of food. That means you can control the population completely. Because if you're hungry, there's not much you won't do for food. So I'm worried about this as being part of an agenda to control global food supply. Call me paranoid, call me out there if you want, whatever you want, I don't care. I am concerned about that, and I feel it's my duty to flag that concern up, which I do now. So I'm worried about local food supply. I'm worried about global food supply. Food has been used as a weapon throughout human history. That's what a siege is, a medieval siege. You would go around the city and you wouldn't allow any food in. And when the people got hungry enough, they would surrender. Food supply has been used in warfare and population control for 10, 20,000 years or whatever. And I don't want it to happen again. we don't want to be controlled. If food supply is controlled, we can be controlled. Certain individuals acquiring large amounts of land, the global attack on dairy cows, which are remarkably productive, the inheritance tax on farmland in the United Kingdom, which eventually is going to take farmland out of the hands of the traditional custodians, the farmers who have families have farmed the land for a couple of thousand years, might end up in big corporations. All these things concern me. And this is sort of in that concern area. All food chains, of course, start with photosynthesis, which depends on light. Photosynthesis depends on sunlight. Now, I know you can get vertical farms where you can have where you can have artificial light, which can be very efficient. But it all comes from light, and of course, the vast majority of food and all of the ecosystem basically comes from natural sunlight, which we depend on. The only type of energy that's not produced by photosynthesis is chemosynthesis. And the only place that's really significant is the ecosystems in deep ocean thermal vents. But I don't tend to eat food from deep ocean thermal vents very often, so I'm not too concerned about that. I am much more concerned about anything which would interfere with photosynthesis. So photosynthesis takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Now, this is the irony here. The whole point about this concern, which is the justification for these experiments, is global warming as a result of too much carbon dioxide. So in order to treat global warming, these people, these experimenters, are going to reduce the amount of incident solar radiation from the sun. That will reduce photosynthesis. If you reduce photosynthesis, you reduce the amount of carbon dioxide taken out of the atmosphere. That leaves more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That increases the greenhouse effect. Am I missing something here? Why on earth would we want to reduce the amount of photosynthesis? Because that's going to result in more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Tell me why I'm wrong. I'm confused. Genuinely don't get it. Photosynthesis puts oxygen into the atmosphere as well, which of course we like. Here's the equation here. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide combined with 6 molecules of oxygen. And the sunlight puts that together, the energy puts that together. It generates energy in the bonds of the C₆H₁₂O₆, which is the simple sugar, which then goes on to form more complex sugars and starches, and you can put a bit of sulfur in and turn it into a protein, and all sorts of clever things that plants do, providing they have the energy to do so. And the only place they get the energy to do so is from the sun. And of course, that also gives 6 molecules of oxygen, on which all life on Earth, not all life on Earth, all aerobic life on Earth depends on. So the only thing that doesn't depend on oxygen is anaerobic life, but even that's part of the ecosystem, and that's only a few bacteria. Well, a lot of bacteria, but anyway. So basically, oxygen is completely essential. All life on Earth depends on photosynthesis, except deep ocean hot vents, but I suspect they even rely on photosynthesis in some ways or another, because they're part of the ocean ecosystem. Ecosystems require an energy input, complex interactions, webs, plants, animals, insects, bacteria, fungi, viruses. The natural ecosystem is just complex beyond imagination. There's millions of types of bacteria. There's untold trillions and 10 to the 22 types of viruses, unimaginable amounts of viruses, fungi, plants, animals, of course. All these things are interacting, but it all depends on the energy flow and the energy webs that starts with the sun. This is not something we want to be reducing, especially in the United Kingdom, where it's not sunny very often anyway. So I would prefer scientists not to mess about with my food supply and oxygen supply, which de facto, it sounds a bit dramatic, but if you are limiting photosynthesis, that is what you're doing. you're allowing more carbon dioxide to stay in the atmosphere instead of going into foodstuffs in plants. And you're reducing the amount of oxygen that our plants produce if you reduce the amount of photosynthesis. I'm concerned about unexpected effects, butterfly effects, chaos effects, runaway effects. Now, the term chaos here is an actual, I don't mean, yeah, it is chaos. What actually happens with things like the weather and the interactions in all the ecosystems is it's chaotic. It's a chaotic system, but you get emergent properties out of that. If you want to know what chaos means, ask a mathematician. It means a chaotic system. But what I know is you get emergent properties. And those emergent properties include my consciousness. They include my life. They include your life. So it's really quite important stuff. Butterfly effects, we all know about that, like a butterfly flaps its wings and there's a tornado somewhere. We can't predict the cascading effects that we're going to get. And the other concern is runaway effects. I mean, for example, we don't want excessive global cooling. We'll look at more in a minute. These things are unpredictable and potentially, we certainly don't want runaway effects. Biodiversity. If you have reduced amounts of sunlight getting to the surface of the Earth, you're going to get reduced photosynthesis. I can't see that's going to increase biodiversity. I think that's going to further decrease biodiversity. And the biodiversity that we're being provided with on the surface of this planet is not recoverable, really. So, we've lost woolly mammoths, we've lost dodos, lots of other things. Basically, we're not going to get them back. I know people are talking about bringing back mammoths, but it'll just be a modified elephant, really, if they do that. But the point is, when we lose this genetic complexity, when we lose this wonderful information in the DNA, we can't get it back. It's gone. We have to preserve biodiversity. I mean, from my point of view, just think of all the cures that are out there in the jungle, just waiting to be discovered, all the natural products that can have also many therapeutic properties, as well as lots of nice things to eat as well, of course. So biodiversity, vital. Accountability. If this goes wrong, who's going to be accountable? There's a saying in science, we only experiment at the cost of total responsibility. But the point is, so many scientists don't take total responsibility. They just change jobs or go through the revolving door to something else. If this goes completely belly up, are the scientists involved going to say, oh, got that wrong, let me put it right, I take total responsibility? Hasn't happened much in the past, has it? So let's plant trees, let's promote plant-animal ecology, let's promote animal welfare. All these things are good. Watch some of the videos from Uganda where we have really good animal welfare. The chickens are running around the banana plants and the coffee plants, pooing all over the place and fertilizing them and eating all the slugs, and it's all integrated ecologically. Let's do that on a global scale. Let's farm seaweed. Let's grow marine microplankton, phytoplankton, get our omega-3s out of that. So many things we could be doing, all of which, of course, depend on energy from the sun. Why not grow more plankton, produce food from plankton, feed it to the animals if you don't want to eat it yourself, but it's good for us because it contains omega-3s. When you eat omega-3s in fish, that doesn't come from the fish, it comes from the plants that the fish eat. So, we need to use more marine organisms, I think, more marine phytoplankton. Anyway, and of course that will take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and that will put oxygen into the atmosphere. And if you take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, then presumably that's going to reduce global warming that people seem to be so worried about. I would have thought that's a much safer way to do it. Plant a few trees, yeah, they'll take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. We don't want high-tech manipulations of the atmosphere. Other risks, unforeseen chaotic effects we've mentioned, disruption in weather patterns, rainfalls, monsoons, hurricanes, all leading to potential food shortages. So the monsoons go across Asia and the farmers are just sitting there waiting for it. The global food supply is completely dependent. If there was disruptions to these weather systems, this could mean famine on a biblical scale. In fact, it would make biblical famines look small because the population's so big now. If the monsoons failed, I would imagine That's going to maybe starve to death a couple of billion people. But just think about the disruption that would cause. They're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, we'll just sit here and wait to starve to death." Of course not. They're going to want to move to where there's food supplies. People will start fighting over food supplies. All you have to do with human beings, all you have to do if you want them to fight, it's quite easy. Just limit a vital resource and they'll start fighting. So limit water, people will fight for it. Limit food, people will fight for it. Limit access to the opposite sex, people will fight for it. Limit food, people are going to start fighting for it. The potential for global warfare and chaos here is immense if this went wrong on a larger scale. Hurricanes, potential food shortages, right, uneven effects leading to regional drought and famine, geopolitical tension. So, I don't know, let's just imagine there was some nasty person. Just imagine that. I can't think of any nasty people in the world at the moment, but let's suppose there was a nasty person, and theoretically this future nasty person could say, you know what, I'll make it rain on my fields, but that bloke over there in the next country, I'm gonna make sure it doesn't rain on his fields. Manipulation of the weather, it's really quite terrifying. I don't think it's going to be as sophisticated as that straight away, but the unpredictable effects could mean that there's a lot of rainfall in some areas and not enough rainfall in other areas, causing famine in some areas. Unpredictable. We don't want it, it's unpredictable. Doesn't address the root problem, it's a single feature intervention. So the root problems are we're not living in harmony with our ecosystems. That is the essence of the problem. Now, how true this global warming contention is, I'm not really qualified to say, but we are damaging our ecosystems, and we should live in harmony with our ecosystems. We should live in harmony with our plants. We should live in harmony with our animals. We should live in harmony with each other, and we should look after animals and look at, properly, not have wet markets, not have this appalling this appalling factory farming of live sentient beings. We need to get back to a more ecological, natural approach to life and food supply, especially. Starting and stopping effects. So when this, whatever this starts, there'll be some effects, and then if we stop, there'll be some other effects as well. Again, virtually impossible. In fact, I would say impossible to predict. Water cycle effects. Now, this is another concern. Of course, water evaporates from the sea and from the lakes and things, and goes up in the clouds and falls down as rain. That's kind of useful. Without that, we have drought. So would there be effects on the water cycle? Yeah, potentially. There could be effects on the water cycle. We don't want that. There's already many looming wars over water supply. Who decides? Can we safely leave all the decision making on manipulation of the environment to, I don't know. Can we safely leave it to clever people like, I don't know. I'm sure you can think of a list of clever people or clever organisations. I mean, are you happy to leave this all to the United Nations? What about the World Economic Forum? Are you happy to let Bill Gates make all the decisions? Are you happy to let the British Prime Minister make all the decisions? Who decides? The decisions will be made by people that take power. That's who will decide. And it's not really something that, who decides? This is the problem, who decides? Now, a few good things about natural sunlight. Ultraviolet B radiation, of course, is important for vitamin D production, and I'm not going to go on about that. We know vitamin D is completely essential. We know that there's a pandemic of vitamin D deficiency, and that leads to all sorts of disease processes. We've covered that really quite extensively. We've talked to world-leading doctors and professors about that subject. But also, ultraviolet is a very good disinfectant. It kills bugs. So things that are exposed to the soil, things in the soil, for example, that are exposed to the the sunlight, it will kill nasty bacteria and viruses. So ultraviolet is a natural disinfectant. And if we reduce the amount of ultraviolet coming to the surface of the earth, we're going to reduce the disinfecting effects. Has that got potential to allow nasty bacteria or viruses to thrive, causing more diseases? Natural disinfectant, very important, and the vitamin D. Now, I don't pretend to be any expert in red light, but there's a lot of research coming online now about the importance of red light. The longer wavelengths. Now, the longer wavelengths of light will penetrate, I don't know, about half a centimetre into the skin, maybe. They penetrate much deeper. And there they affect the mitochondria. And a lot of people are saying that these are very important for stimulating mitochondrial activity. And of course, mitochondria produce all of the energy. So this is really quite an important effect. And the ultraviolet, not the ultraviolet, the infrared, the even longer wavelengths that human beings can't see, they'll penetrate even deeper. And of course, red light beds and red light therapy is now becoming quite popular, and more is being learnt about it. Just a few things that it does. An obvious one is SAD. SAD stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder. Affect, of course, is mood, emotion. So people become more depressed and more anxious in winter if they suffer from seasonal affective disorder. And the fact that it's called seasonal affective disorder kind of gives you a clue as to what's causing it, doesn't it? The lack of sunlight is the main factor causing seasonal affective disorder. Obviously, it's worse in winter. Dementia, these are just a few things from WebMed I've taken. Dementia, people exposed to the sun, better memories, better sleep, angry less often, which is good. There seems to be an increase in anger at the moment. More people are more angry since 2021, according to a lot of people I've talked to. Probably more to come on that. Maybe not in my lifetime. In fact, maybe not in your lifetime even, but the truth will come out on that eventually. But don't hold your breath on that one. So sunlight's good, red light's good for dementia, red light's good for pain, may be useful for relieving some pains, particularly pain due to inflammation, which of course is very common. Rheumatoid arthritis, treatment for pain, morning stiffness, and for patients with rheumatoid arthritis. So good for patients with arthritis. Tendinopathy, people with various tendon diseases, may relieve pain or improve tendon function. And androgenic alopecia. Alopecia means hair loss. Male pattern baldness is basic. Someone told me years ago that if you wear hats all the time, you're more likely to go bald, and it's actually probably true, because the sunlight, especially the red light, seems to help with hair growth. Maybe a bit late for me, but might be useful for you. Now, I'm not going to go on to the next section now. I'll leave that for this video, otherwise people will get bored. But the next two sections, I've actually prepared some material on, and I'll try and get these done soon. But how this is actually done is a matter of concern, especially toxins that might be used to facilitate it. And I'm really quite concerned about aluminium. I do hope they're not going to be using aluminium. And the other one is the funding. And it's really quite interesting where this funding is coming from. Anyway, we'll leave that for now, and let me know what you think about this. And basically, I think we need to stop these experiments before they go any further. But let me know what you think. So far, about 7,000 of you have agreed on the comments. But keep commenting, keep me informed. And anything else you want me to know. I think I managed to read about 1,000 of the comments, so I do try and read them if I can. But for now, let's proceed with humility, not arrogance, not bravado, not, oh, it'll probably be all right. Oh, just roll this vaccine out to billions of people. It'll probably be all right. There probably won't be many side effects. Oh, just start doing this. Let's have some humility. Just please, humility. We don't know much about the body. We don't know much about the ecosystem. They're both immensely complicated, created entities. And let's not tinker around with things we don't understand. Unless we absolutely have to, unless the risk-benefit analysis is clear to benefit us. But I don't think in this case it is. Thank you for now.